So let's talk about hierarchy. They want to talk about hierarchy. Just outside having a cigarette, and someone said, "You should probably talk about hierarchy a bit more." That seems to be a central theme to different things, from things like the lower eighth sphere to the authoritarian ideas associated with the Dark Enlightenment to issues associated with the Vatican or the monarchs, or issues associated with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and type characters' thinking processes, to issues with the incels and the tech bros. The problem appears to be hierarchy. That's a theme that goes through all of it. It's all about hierarchy. So let's talk about what hierarchy is for. Hierarchy is strongly associated with the military. So the military is a type of organization that is usually organized hierarchically. In a really old sense of the term, you can have a small group of people that form a sort of like a group of warriors. They don't necessarily have a hierarchy amongst them when they do. If it's a small battle or a small group of battles or whatever, and they're not operating in a decentralized fashion, then they don't typically have hierarchy. However, hierarchy is a central question that needs to be answered by a society to understand what its purpose is, if it has any, and to what extent it's allowed to infest our lives and our minds to the point of complete absurdity. So, if you're doing taxonomic hierarchies to comprehend the biosphere, for example, then hierarchy in terms of categorical classification of information could be useful if the hierarchies and the classifications are in fact accurate. However, when they're not accurate, then the classification system and the hierarchy is not true. It's also the case that your classification system, which takes the shape of a hierarchy, isn't necessarily a true reflection of how that biosphere operates or that ecosystem operates. It's more a reflection of how categorical classification is a useful tool to project symbolically the organization of information to comprehend each and every being within that biosphere or ecosystem. So even ecosystem biospheres, the idea of hierarchy is a load of fucking shit. There's no such thing as an apex predator. There's just a bunch of animals running around and plants and growing and or not growing and a bunch of weather patterns, and basically comes together with a bunch of geological forces and occasionally solar flares from outer space, and eventually, stuff might or might not happen. So there's that. So the complex variables associated with ecology strongly suggest the absence of hierarchy in nature. And that hierarchy is merely a classificational system for the purpose of correct categorization of the different beings within that particular ecosystem or ecology, and therefore are subsequently not necessarily the truth, but a means by which truth can be ascertained, similar to the fourth dimensional space-time, which is a imaginary construct created by people for the purposes of measuring objects in terms of their distance or how long they've taken to travel from one space to another. In other words, time is always related to distance. Distance is about the comparison of two different objects or variables, and is not something that exists in and of itself unless you take other things into consideration and you do points of comparison. So the actual dimension between them isn't real, but the act of measurement is. Okay, so now you understand that movement and motion and objects and relationship between variables is more like an ecosystem, potentially, although that could be a conflation of the previous statement. We might get somewhere when it comes to the idea of hierarchy of people. At what point did somebody assume that hierarchy amongst people was the natural social order? Go on, take a guess. What, you mean to say that there's no cultural variance around the world, that the only time humans existed was in Europe after the Roman Empire invaded or the invention of Christianity? Wait, there was no other humans around the world with different social orders and different ways of doing things, with a complex array of cultures and means of expression and determination of how they should interact with nature and symbolic language associated with this. There's no cave paintings that are 150,000 to 200,000 years old that have nothing to do with hierarchies. Wait, no, that doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is your fucking Vatican, your stupid fucking King of England, Your crappy fucking goddamn military fucking structures and your crappy fucking White House shit. Fuck off.